Suge Knight. Born in Compton in 1965, Marion Hugh Knight Jr. wasn't always the music mogul we know today. He actually had legitimate athletic talent, playing defensive end at UNLV and even briefly with the Los Angeles Rams as a replacement player during the 1987 NFL strike. But it was his post-football career that would cement his legacy. After working as a bodyguard for celebrities including Bobby Brown, Knight saw an opportunity in the music business, specifically in hip-hop's emerging West Coast scene. In 1991, Knight co-founded Death Row Records with Dr. Dre after allegedly helping Dre exit his contract with Ruthless Records through some, let's call them, unconventional methods. The story goes that Knight and his gang confronted Eazy-E with baseball bats and lead pipes, essentially forcing him to release Dre from his contract. Knight himself later bragged about this incident in interviews, saying, "If you have a gun to your head and someone says, 'Sign this contract,' would you sign it?" With Dr. Dre on board, Death Row quickly became hip-hop's most powerful label. Their roster was legendary: Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and eventually Tupac. Between 1992 and 1996, Death Row was untouchable, releasing classics like The Chronic, Doggy Style, and All Eyes on Me. But behind the platinum plaques and chart-topping hits was a business reportedly run on intimidation, violence, and fear. Former Death Row artists and employees have described a culture of violence that started at the top. Knight was known to hold meetings where he'd dangle people over balconies, beat them in front of others, or worse. Vanilla Ice famously claimed that Knight and his associates dangled him by his ankles from a 15th floor hotel balcony until he signed over royalties to his hit Ice Ice Baby. While Ice later walked back some details of this story, the legend itself speaks to Knight's reputation. Knight's most public display of antagonism came at the 1995 Source Awards, where he openly mocked Bad Boy Records founder Puff Daddy, fueling the East Coast-West Coast rivalry that would define mid-90s hip-hop. In 1995, Knight posted Tupac Shakur's $1.4 million bail on the condition that he signed with Death Row. This move transformed both Death Row and the hip-hop landscape, but also escalated the coastal rivalry to dangerous new heights. On September 13, 1996, after a Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas, Tupac was fatally shot while riding in a car with Knight. This tragedy became hip-hop's most infamous unsolved murder and marked the beginning of the end for Death Row's dominance. In 1997, he was sentenced to 9 years for violating probation. While he was in prison, Death Row collapsed under financial mismanagement and artist departures. Upon release in 2001, Knight tried to revive Death Row, but his reputation and business tactics were catching up with him. His most serious legal trouble came in 2015, when Knight was charged with murder after a hit-and-run incident on the set of the NWA biopic Straight Outta Compton. In 2018, he pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 28 years in prison. 6ix9ine. Daniel Hernandez, better known as 6ix9ine or Tekashi 6ix9ine, was born in 1996 in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Hernandez's early life was marked by hardship. His father was murdered when he was just 13, forcing him to work jobs like delivering groceries to help support his family. After dropping out of school in 8th grade, he started selling drugs to make ends meet. His entry into music wasn't planned. In 2014, he began creating rage-bait content on Instagram and SoundCloud, developing the 6ix9ine character as a way to stand out in the crowded rap landscape. In 2017, 6ix9ine burst onto the scene with his breakout single Gummo. The video featured dozens of people wearing red bandanas, showcasing his affiliation with the Bloods gang. The song's raw energy and his shouting delivery style helped it climb the charts, peaking at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. More importantly, it established his formula: create controversy, embrace conflict, and turn attention, positive or negative, to streams. What followed was a string of hits including Kuda, Kiki, and Fafi, featuring Nicki Minaj. His debut album Dummy Boy reached number 2 on the Billboard 200, confirming that his strategy was working commercially, even as critics panned his music. But 6ix9ine's real talent wasn't music, it was manufacturing controversy. He became known for trolling other artists, starting feuds with everyone from Chief Keef to YG to Trippie Redd. His social media became a constant stream of provocations, threats, and bragging. Unlike rap beefs of the past that often involved lyrical skill, 6ix9ine's conflicts played out primarily on Instagram. where he'd mock other artists' sales numbers, question their street credibility, or simply hurl insults. While building his rap career, 6ix9ine aligned himself with members of the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods. He's admitted that this affiliation was strategic, providing him protection, street credibility, and an authentic edge for his music videos. This partnership would ultimately lead to his downfall. In November 2018, federal agents arrested 6ix9ine and several 9 Trey members on racketeering, weapons, and drug charges. Facing a potential 47-year sentence, 6ix9ine made a decision that would cement his villain status in hip-hop forever. He chose to cooperate with federal authorities. Just one day after his arrest, 6ix9ine began providing information about his fellow gang members. During a high-profile trial in 2019, he testified against former associates, identifying them in court and detailing their criminal activities. In hip-hop, a culture where no snitching has been a long-standing code, 6ix9ine's cooperation was viewed as the ultimate betrayal. His testimony helped secure convictions against several 9 Trey members, and in return, he received a drastically reduced 2-year sentence. Released early in April 2020 due to COVID-19 concerns, many assumed 6ix9ine's career was over. How could someone who violated hip-hop's cardinal rule continue in the industry? But 6ix9ine doubled down on his villain role. His first post-prison single, Gooba, broke YouTube records for the most views in 24 hours for a hip-hop video. He openly embraced the snitch label, even incorporating rat imagery into his own promotion. His strategy remained the same: provoke, antagonize, and convert outrage into streams. He feuded with Billboard over chart positions, trolled deceased rappers, and continued to mock former gang associates from the safety of his security detail. What 6ix9ine represents is the evolution of hip-hop villainy in the social media age. Unlike previous rap antagonists who built their reputations on musical skill or genuine street conflicts, 6ix9ine's entire career is built on attention engineering. Since 2021, 6ix9ine's career has cooled considerably. His album Tattletales underperformed expectations, and the shock value of his antics has diminished. Legal troubles continue to follow him, including lawsuits and assault allegations. Benzino. Raymond Benzino Scott may not be a household name for younger hip-hop fans, but in the early 2000s, he was at the center of one of rap's most publicized conflicts, forever linking his legacy to the artist he targeted. Born in Boston in 1965, Benzino's rap career began in the late 80s with the group Almighty RSO, later renamed Made Men. While they achieved modest regional success, Benzino's true power came not from his microphone skills, but from his position in hip-hop media. In 1994, Benzino became a co-owner of The Source magazine, which was then considered the Bible of hip-hop. At its peak, The Source was the most influential hip-hop publication in the world, with the coveted 5-mic album rating representing the gold standard for rap excellence. This position gave Benzino enormous influence in the industry. Artists needed The Source's approval, and record labels courted the magazine's favor. For years, The Source maintained its credibility despite Benzino's increasing behind-the-scenes control. But as Benzino's own rap career stalled, he began using the magazine as a platform for his personal agenda. This became most apparent when he launched a campaign against the biggest rap star in the world at that time. In 2002, Benzino ignited what would become his defining controversy by attacking Eminem. He released diss tracks like Pull Your Skirt Up and Die Another Day, questioning Eminem's authenticity as a white artist in hip-hop and making various personal attacks. But what made this conflict different was how Benzino weaponized The Source against Eminem. The magazine published a 2003 article titled The Unbearable Whiteness of MCing and gave unusually low ratings to Eminem's projects despite their critical acclaim elsewhere. The conflict reached its peak when The Source published excerpts from a tape of a teenage Eminem using racist language, presenting it as evidence against him while ignoring context, and Eminem's subsequent apologies and growth. The hip-hop community largely sided with Eminem, viewing Benzino's attacks as motivated by jealousy rather than legitimate criticism. Eminem responded with devastating diss tracks like The Sauce and Nail in the Coffin, which many consider among the most effective diss records in rap history. As the feud continued, The Source's credibility suffered. Advertisers pulled out, and circulation declined. Many felt Benzino had sacrificed the magazine's journalistic integrity for his personal vendetta. By 2006, investors had enough. Benzino and his business partner Dave Mays were forced out of the Source, which later filed for bankruptcy. The once respected publication never fully recovered its former status and influence. Birdman. Brian Williams, better known as Birdman, was born on February 15, 1969, in New Orleans, Louisiana. After his mother's death, he spent time in foster homes and was later incarcerated for drug possession. Upon release, he and his brother Ronald Slim Williams saw music as their path to legitimacy and wealth. In 1991, they founded Cash Money Records, initially focusing on releasing albums by local New Orleans artists. The label's early roster included BG, Juvenile, Turk, and a young Lil Wayne, who would eventually become Cash Money's most successful artist. By the late 90s, Cash Money had broken through nationally with the Hot Boys Collective and their 1999 platinum album Guerrilla Warfare. Their distinctive sound, driven by producer Manny Fresh, helped define the southern rap movement of that era. Cash Money's biggest business coup came in 1998, when Birdman negotiated an unprecedented $30 million distribution deal with Universal Records that allowed Cash Money to retain ownership of their masters, something virtually unheard of for an independent label at that time. This deal demonstrated Birdman's business acumen, but it's his subsequent dealings with artists that have fueled his reputation as a rap villain. The first major cracks appeared in the early 2000s, when original Cash Money artists began to leave the label, often with bitter accusations about unpaid royalties and misleading contracts. Juvenile, who delivered the label's first major hit with 400 Degrees, left claiming financial mismanagement. Producer Manny Fresh, whose beats defined the Cash Money sound, departed citing similar issues. BG and Turk followed, effectively ending the original Cash Money era. But the label survived through Lil Wayne's meteoric rise. Birdman positioned himself as a father figure to Wayne, who he signed at just 12 years old. Their relationship seemed unbreakable. They even released a collaborative album in 2006 called Like Father, Like Son. Under Wayne's artistic leadership, Cash Money expanded with the Young Money imprint, signing future superstars Drake and Nicki Minaj. This created one of hip-hop's most powerful empires, with Birdman still controlling the purse strings. But in 2014, this relationship imploded spectacularly when Wayne took to Twitter to denounce Cash Money, claiming the label was refusing to release his long-awaited The Carter 5 album and withholding money. Wayne sued for $51 million, claiming Birdman had violated their contract. The conflict turned public and ugly. At one point, Birdman allegedly orchestrated an incident where someone threw a drink at Wayne during a performance. There were even more serious allegations, including claims that Birdman was involved in a 2015 shooting of Wayne's tour bus, though he denied any involvement. These high-profile disputes highlighted Birdman's controversial business model. Former artists have described restrictive contracts, confusing accounting practices, and an environment where loyalty to Birdman was valued above fair compensation. The accusations became so widespread that Rick Ross dedicated an entire track, Idols Become Rivals, to exposing Birdman's alleged mistreatment of artists. The song included the memorable line, "I used to look up to you. What happened to you?" Throughout these controversies, Birdman has maintained that he operates fairly, often citing the enormous success of artists who came through Cash Money as evidence that his system works. In interviews, he's portrayed himself as a businessman who took all the risks and deserves his share of the rewards. By 2018, Wayne and Birdman had reportedly settled their legal dispute, with Wayne finally releasing The Carter 5 and gaining ownership of his Young Money label. Diddy. Sean Diddy Combs, known by many names, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, and Love, has always been center stage, building empires, launching careers, and consistently reinventing himself. Born in Harlem in 1969, Combs got his start as an intern at Uptown Records in the early 90s, quickly rising to become an A&R executive. His keen ear for talent and marketing instincts made him valuable, but his ambitious nature led to clashes with leadership. After being fired from Uptown in 1993, Diddy made perhaps the most significant move of his career, founding Bad Boy Records and signing a then-unknown Brooklyn rapper named Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G. Bad Boy's rise was meteoric. Biggie's 1994 debut, Ready to Die, established the label as a major force, with Diddy's production collective, The Hitmen, creating a glossy, sample-heavy sound that dominated radio. Artists like Craig Mack, Faith Evans, and Total further built the roster. Diddy himself transitioned to rapping, first appearing on remixes before launching his own career. His marketing genius was undeniable. From the shiny suits to the bad boy for life mantra, he created an aspirational brand that merged hip-hop with high-end lifestyle. As Bad Boy's power grew, tension developed with Death Row Records on the West Coast. What began as business competition escalated into the infamous East Coast-West Coast rivalry that defined mid-90s hip-hop. The conflict reached its tragic peak with the murders of Tupac Shakur in 1996 and the Notorious B.I.G. in 1997. While Diddy was never implicated in either killing, the deaths cast a shadow over his success and raised questions about the environment he helped create. Just months after Biggie's death, Diddy released his debut album, No Way Out, featuring the tribute single, I'll Be Missing You. The album sold over 7 million copies and won a Grammy, transforming Diddy from behind-the-scenes player to global superstar. This began a pattern that would define Diddy's career, turning tragedy into triumph, controversy into opportunity, and leveraging his personal brand to build businesses beyond music. By the 2000s, Diddy was expanding beyond records into fashion, Sean John, spirits, Ciroc Vodka, media, Revolt TV, and education, Capital Preparatory Schools. His net worth eventually surpassed $1 billion, making him one of hip-hop's greatest business success stories. Yet throughout this rise, allegations of problematic business practices followed him. Multiple artists from Bad Boy's roster, including The Lox, Mase, and Shine, have spoken publicly about unfair contracts, royalty disputes, and feeling exploited by Diddy's business model. Mase, in particular, has been vocal, claiming Diddy offered him $20,000 to buy back his publishing rights that were worth millions. In 2020, he called out Diddy's hypocrisy after Combs received an industry award for supporting black entrepreneurship. Beyond business disputes, Diddy's career has been marked by legal troubles. The 1999 club shooting incident with then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez resulted in weapons charges. He was later acquitted, but cemented his volatile reputation. In 2015, security footage emerged of Diddy physically confronting his son's UCLA football coach with a kettlebell. Charges were eventually dropped, but the incident added to a pattern of alleged aggressive behavior. Machine Gun Kelly. Like other figures we've covered, MGK's villain status comes not from industry power plays or legal troubles, but from his provocative persona, genre-jumping career, and one of the most high-profile rap beefs of the 2010s. Born in 1990 in Houston, Colson Baker, aka MGK, had a nomadic childhood, moving frequently due to his parents' separation. By his teenage years, he was in Cleveland, where he began developing his rap skills and adopted the name Machine Gun Kelly due to his rapid-fire delivery. MGK built his early following through relentless touring and a series of mixtapes that showcased his technical ability and raw energy. In 2011, he signed to Bad Boy Records under Diddy, releasing his debut album, Lace Up, in 2012. His early work connected with a dedicated fan base, particularly in the Midwest, with singles like Wild Boy establishing him as an energetic presence in hip-hop. But despite moderate commercial success, MGK struggled to break through to mainstream recognition. This changed dramatically in 2018, though not necessarily in the way he might have wanted, when he became involved in perhaps the defining moment of his hip-hop career. The conflict began when MGK commented on Eminem's daughter Haley in 2012, calling the then 16-year-old hot in a tweet. Years later, MGK claimed this comment led to him being blackballed in the industry. The tension simmered for years before exploding in 2018, when Eminem targeted MGK on his surprise album Kamikaze. MGK quickly responded with Rap Devil, a diss track that directly challenged the rap icon. Rap Devil became the most successful diss track on YouTube and briefly made MGK the talk of hip-hop. The song wasn't just provocative, it was technically impressive, with specific criticisms of Eminem's recent work and career choices. Eminem's devastating reply came in the form of Kill Shot, which accumulated even more views and effectively ended the battle in the court of public opinion. The track picked apart MGK's career, style, and even his man bun. While MGK claimed victory in interviews, the beef's aftermath proved challenging for his hip-hop career. His 2019 album, Hotel Diablo, which addressed the conflict, underperformed commercially, despite some critical praise. Then came one of the most dramatic reinventions in recent music history. In 2020, MGK released Tickets to My Downfall, a pop-punk album produced by Blink-182's Travis Barker. The genre switch raised eyebrows, with many questioning if he was abandoning rap after losing the Eminem battle. Yet commercially, the move proved brilliant. Tickets to My Downfall became his first #1 album, and its follow-up, Mainstream Sellout, continued his success in the rock world. He found himself with a new audience, while many hip-hop fans viewed him as having fled the genre. Throughout this transformation, MGK's public persona remained controversial. His relationship with actress Megan Fox generated constant tabloid attention, with their public appearances and comments often criticized as attention-seeking or bizarre. MGK became an easy target for mockery online, with his fashion choices, statements, and music all regularly subjected to ridicule.